I'd like to introduce our speakers. The first one is Anastasia Rezhepp. She's the head of DataArt Design Studio. Hi, Nasta.
Hello.
And the second one, Dima Kozitsky, our lead design expert. Hi, Dima.
Hello. Hi.
Nasta, are you ready to start?
Yes, thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
So we'll share our responsibilities with Dmitry, and we'll talk about a couple different things in turns. And I will start with this picture. This is the city of Munich, and I will tell a very short story concerning Munich and UX. And meanwhile, as Peter said, you can write your ideas, what you'd like to listen to today and in the future in our Q&A section below. So, Munich. I was there only once, and it was during one of the banking hackathons, and I was there as a part of DataArt team of advisors. I was responsible for UX advice, and the rest of the team were technical guys. And it was really interesting because I had a few observations there. You know how it happens during hackathons. I think it were more than 30 teams trapped in that bank, and they had to think of something in 2 days. And I walked in this hall, and I saw people struggling with their ideas. There were teams who couldn't decide on what they were going to do at all for the whole first day, maybe. So they just didn't know any ideation techniques. So they couldn't agree what they wanted to do. And there were also teams who got stuck on something very simple. For example, on, I don't know, a color of a button, and they spent an hour arguing about this color. So something very minor. And the second observation that I had there, unfortunately, I was the least popular advisor at all. Our iOS guy and solution architect were the stars, but almost nobody approached me for any UX advice. And it was really interesting because you could see that people thought that the main thing was to make this functionality. And then guess what happened? The winning solution was from the team who had a designer and who not only made something that worked, but they also made a clickable demo of their solution, which was usable, it was convenient, and it didn't need 1,000 words to describe it. And they also wrapped it up into a nicely looking presentation. Really interesting. So why do I think it happened with them? Because the statistics says that up to 85% actually perceive the visual information much better. And of course, I understand that hackathons are not real life. They are different from the real projects, and they have their own specifics. But at the same time, I truly believe that those prototypes and quick visual solutions help a lot. And that is why I'm sorry if you believe in the same too, but I'm never tired of repeating this. Really, this quick prototyping, this quick ideation and turning something into a visual thing helps in many situations. It helps to align people and their ideas, if there are different ideas. It greatly helps to collect feedback. It's much easier to do it when you have something visual and not just give people 100 pages of documentation. And also, it always helps when you need to present an idea to somebody, to decision makers, to investors, to your colleagues in the company, to anyone. So that is why we decided that our first webinar will be this overview why it is so important to somehow make your ideas become visual. And we'll talk about this today. And I will start with this quick description of the UX process in general. Please don't be afraid. I'm not going to give a full lesson of how this UX process looks like, but in general, it always consists of several steps or phases. It doesn't really matter how they are called, but the idea is always more or less the same. You start with some research and investigation with the users or with stakeholders, with the business. Then you continue with ideation thinking phase, when you turn all the information that you previously collected into some common idea. And at this point, we also start a little bit of prototyping usually. Then during the design phase, you turn everything into those visual artifacts with the help of wireframes and prototypes. And it is also very important to collect feedback and to evaluate what has been done with the help of some user research. So here you can see some wild mix of different techniques and methodologies and tools and artifacts which can be used during those phases. This is not everything, this is just a part of this. But why I decided to show it like this? Here you can see the parts which basically are much more comfortable when you are doing them offline. When you have people gathered in the same room, or you sit together with the users and observe them closely, something like that. And you can see that in this thinking phase, it's usually much more efficient and faster if everyone is sitting somewhere close to each other. At the same time, the green ones here are the techniques that are completely fine when being done remotely. Let's say the design phase, when designers work on those wireframes and prototypes, it's totally okay to do it remotely. It's quite a rare situation when people together on the same sheet of paper. And there are some techniques, not only the ones mentioned here, but in general, some techniques heavily depend on the context and on the product. Let's say those personas, fictional characters that help you understand the end users. You can have a workshop with the whole team of stakeholders to agree on those personas, or the UX expert can sit alone and construct them out of the investigation phase artifacts. Or the same with usability testing. It can be in a lab or it can be done remotely, and both techniques work well in different situations. Usually, we at DataArt try to do some part of this job offline. People travel to the same office and then they work together. For example, during this thinking phase, Dmitry will talk more about it a little bit later, but it's quite common that people do it quickly in 1 week or two, being in the same room, in the same environment. But at the same time, it's not always the case, and especially nowadays, because now most of the people work from home. So what to do in this situation? I suggest two options. The first one is just to get rid of offshore techniques at all. No paper prototyping, no field studies. It is possible, mostly it is possible. Or you can swap them into something else. for example, you can somehow replace field studies with diary studies in some situations. But the second way, which we use very often, even before all this coronavirus situation, is to turn offshore techniques into online techniques. And I marked everything in green here, except for field studies. I just left them. But even field studies can be turned into something online. You can use videos or something else. But what I want to say is that most of those things can be done remotely. And as we do it quite often, even in the regular situation, we work a lot with our own colleagues remotely, and we work with the clients remotely. I can say that everything is possible, and we know how to do that, and we'll tell you more about it. And now I will switch to the next section, but meanwhile, I will ask you to write in our Q&A which techniques you ever used in your work, in your regular activities, because it is really interesting what experience you have. And we'll collect this information and share it later. Okay. I'm going to mention a few of my favorite tips, and then Dmitry will have more a little bit later. The main challenges when you're working remotely are the following, which you can see here on the screen. Obviously, it is less emotional. It is very hard to follow everyone's emotions. Obviously, it is harder to keep everyone's attention comparing to when you are in the same room. And also, you cannot just use a pen and paper. You need to be very careful with your tool set for all those remote activities. And some of my favorite tips are the following. First of all, we have to work with the emotion. I always suggest that everyone has a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. In some situations, it is possible to have a glass of wine, but obviously not during the workshop with stakeholders, but maybe for some less working session. Important and different warm-up techniques, icebreakers, which can be done remotely. Again, you probably cannot use marshmallow challenge remotely, but you can use some different ones. And I'm always saying that it is best to use the video. Also, we are always working remotely with our own teams, and I can say that it greatly helps to feel each other if you have video on. And I know that there are connection issues nowadays, and it is not always possible, but if the connection is fine, please make sure that everyone is using the video. A couple of words about warm-ups. These are my favorites. The first one is called Tell About Your City, and I think it can be used in basically any situation. Even if you need to get acquainted to the C-level people, it's okay to ask them to tell about what city they come from and to say a few words about it. Usually it makes everyone feel better from the very beginning. But at the same time, I can say that we now have our best warm-up. In the past 2 months, we start basically every conversation describing what restrictions people have in their city because of this coronavirus situation. It works every single day and it helps to relax. And the second option is with the backgrounds. As you can see, Dmitry now is sitting in this Simpsons room. And first of all, it is always funny. And the second thing, if people tell about their backgrounds, it usually says something about their tastes. And again, you can just know a person better this way. As for the attention issues, I would say the following. First of all, good facilitators are usually capable of holding the attention of a group of up to 20 people being in one room, but it is hardly possible online. That's why I suggest to divide the stakeholders or users into smaller groups, and then maybe have a bigger meeting sharing all the findings from the smaller meetings. The second thing is that you almost always need two people, at least two people, to facilitate any workshop, because somebody is going to talk and somebody is going to take notes. So please make sure that you have a prepared team. Then again, it's about the video. If it is a workshop, it's much better to observe people, and it also helps people concentrate, because, you know, it's much easier to get distracted when you don't have any video. You can do whatever, but if you do, then you're usually more concentrated on the topic. And there are also some ways to engage the audience. For example, you can ask questions, you can name people by their names so that everyone keeps involved. It's all facilitation techniques, but they're just a little bit different when being done online. And about the tool set, it's once again about the video. I'm a big fan of video. Make sure that people have their cameras. If it's not laptops, then they need to buy a camera. It's really great if you are not only screen sharing, but you have the tools which allow you to collaborate online. Dmitry will share his knowledge on this in a few minutes. And what I also like, and I think is really good for remote collaboration and facilitation, is to have this raising hand functionality. If you don't have, for example, videos on, such as in Zoom, when you have this little hand and you can ask for commenting or asking a question with this help of raising hand, so that not to make the meeting too noisy and too cluttered. That is it from my side, and now we're switching to Dmitry's part, and having just huge experience with both facilitation techniques and collaboration with designers on prototypes. He'll share his knowledge, and he'll start with the workshops.
We do love workshops here at DataArt, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about different workshop techniques that we are using at DataArt. But I would like to start that this presentation was made like part of the workshop session. When we started thinking about the today's webinar with Anastasia, we decided, we were thinking about how do we present our presentation, and we decided to brainstorm different ideas. You can see the place of all our ideas here, and we decided to make the presentation here in this online tool which we use for the workshops. So let's start with the workshops. And the question is, what is the difference between the workshop and the meeting? So the primary idea of the meeting is that people are visiting the same place just to discuss some things. The workshop session is the session where people come into some place to do some work. Before Corona things, we were visiting our clients on site and conducting the workshops. Now we are conducting the online workshops. They are less efficient, but they are okay in the current situation. So for the beginning, I would like to tell you why we use workshops. First of all, workshops help us to create the shared vision with the client's team, with the other team members from, for example, development department, and so on and so forth. And we can collect the information needed from the stakeholders, we collect the information needed from the development team, and we all together work on the similar ideas, similar processes, and we are trying to find the solution which will satisfy the business needs and the needs of the end users. And definitely, we have a lot of fun during these workshop sessions. Offline workshops, they are pretty important because they allow us to meet in person our clients, meet in person the team, because sometimes we do have teams which are located in different countries and cities. So before the lockdown, we have a specific amount of rules to prepare the workshop sessions. We started with thinking on who will be participating in the workshop session, which rules should we have during this workshop session, what will be our time, what will be schedule, what are going to be the places of the workshop or surfaces on which we are going to draw some wireframes, what will be the energizers, what will be the analog instruments like pencils, sheet of papers, sticky notes, and so on and so forth. We are thinking about different shareable materials which we were presenting to our clients during the workshop sessions, and briefs and tasks. But during the lockdown period, unfortunately, we do not have the places and surfaces. We do not have analog instruments. We are using online tools, and definitely we are using the online energizers. But actually, some of the energizers they may come to the online workshop as well. For example, some physical activities like making some burpees, for example. And let's start with the workshop technique that we use frequently. We use this technique to teach our clients. We use this technique to generate ideas. And this technique called design thinking workshop, it's made based on the design thinking methodology, and actually the process that Anastasia mentioned recently, actually it's one of the type of the design thinking process. So during the design thinking process, we have 5 major stages emphasized when we are trying to understand who are the users, what are their needs, what are their pain points. Then we are defining what we can do for them. Then we are ideating different solutions which may satisfy users' needs or can solve their problem. Then we proceed to the prototype, and usually during the workshop session, which is one-day session, we use all these prototypes with all that analog instrument that we have, like different sheets of papers, like different sticks for coffee, with papers, pencils, pens, and so on and so forth. And then we are testing all these ideas with the potential target audience of the product. Sometimes it's impossible to invite target audience to the workshop sessions, but in some cases it's possible, and it helps to validate idea as early as possible. The next technique that we use frequently, it's jobs to be done technique. The primary idea of jobs to be done is to focus on the need of users. And usually users and people, consumers of a product or customers of a service, they hire the product or service to solve some of the problem. And this product or service should do some jobs. And the jobs to be done techniques, it's pretty simple. It consists of 3 major parts of a sentence, which allow us to dive deep into the needs of users. So it is different sentences, consists of 3 parts. Like, first part is the situation part, when we understand when do users or when do customers of service facing with the problem, or when do they need a solution. Then we are trying to understand the drivers. Why do they need the specific solution? And we are trying to understand what do they want and what do they can do with the outcome. So let's see example. So the example is, let's imagine the person who is a worker online, and he is becoming hungry, and he decided to order some food just not to stop his working process because he's too busy, or he's in a flow process, and he's trying to generate some ideas or some solutions. So when I'm hungry as a user, I want to quickly order some food so I can proceed my work without interrupt on cooking. We understand that user would like to order some food just to save some time. Okay, when I, as a user, when I'm hungry, I want to have ability to choose what to eat today so I can vary my nutrition. Here we understand that users and customers of a service, they will order different types of food just to vary their nutrition. Then the process of ordering, when the user is ordering, she or he would like to know the nutrition facts of an order just to have a balanced diet. So we understand that they are trying to calculate all these nutrition facts just to eat the balanced food. And then we see what will why will users hire our product during the ordering process, and why what do they want to get while they are waiting their delivery. And usually during the workshop sessions, we can create lots of different jobs stories. Here you can see that we are dividing into different user roles. Also, we are informing some preconditions of different job statements. Also, we are communicating online on the different job stories just to clarify some issues or just to understand what was mentioned by another workshop member. And also, we are collecting all this information into either Google spreadsheets or Microsoft Excel, just to share it further to our client or to another team who is not able to participate in our workshop session. And now you can see that we also can use Google spreadsheet to facilitate the workshop on jobs to be done. The one more technique that we do love is the customer journey map. Customer journey map allows us to understand the process of all the interactions between the customer and a service. And we understand that customers of service, they interact through different touch points. For example, they may interact with service via mobile phone or via some web browser, or even via visiting the offline restaurant, for example, in case we are talking about the restaurant. And this technique allows us to quickly show how do users and customers interact with our service. The important part of the customer journey map is to add the emotional facts about every single step and inform which touch points do customer use to interact with service. And here we see that during the process of ordering some food, our persona has different feelings. For example, when she saw the advertisement on Facebook, she tried to remember the name of our delivery service. Then when she became hungry, she became angry because she forgot the name of the service. And once she found the service through Google, she came to our website, and then she was thinking about what to order. Then she collected order, paid for this order, and then she were waiting for her delivery. This is customer journey, and they may be different. They may be offline, as we usually used before the lockdown. They may be digital, as we use like in Mira, like here, and they may have different look and feel based on the needs of specific project. The next workshop we do love a lot, and it's probably the most important technique when we talk about services, which have different touch points. This is service blueprint. Service blueprint, it's the visual representation of all the processes inside business to satisfy customers. And they are built based on the customer journey. So at the very beginning, at the top of the service blueprint, we do have the customer journey. And actually, it may be taken from the previous exercise. And all these interactions, they are done through time and through different touch points. And our customer is interacting with the service. And the service has a lot of different interactions inside it. And we are showing it with 3 different swim lines. The first swim line is all the activities which are visible for customer. For example, when the customer is visiting the restaurant, he will see the waiters, he will see the administrator of the restaurant, but he won't see some of employees. And this is gonna be the second swim line of service blueprint, where we are explaining all the processes which are not visible for the customer. For example, the processes on the kitchen, when different people are trying to create some food for our customer. And the third swim line, it's all the processes which are supporting the business interactions. It may be third-party services or some vendors which are supporting the work of the business. And we understand that everything inside this process important to satisfy the customer needs. The final look and feel of service blueprint may be different, and they may be either made in online instrument like Miro or Mural. And here we see that there are a lot of sticky notes with the arrows. And one of the most important part of this service blueprint are arrows. They are showing the preconditions of every single stage of interactions inside the service. And we see that some of visible actions may interact with the customer. Some of the visible actions are trying to interact with non-visible actions, and so on and so forth. And this technique, this instrument helps us to understand the full picture of the service and not to forget something during this design process. It helps us to test all our hypotheses that service will work smoothly from the beginning till the end of the customer journey. And of course, we do have a lot of different techniques like prioritization, ideation, brainstorming session, different canvases like value proposition or business model canvases, design sprint, and SWOT. Write down in Q&A session what workshops have you participated and what workshops would you like to participate in future. And definitely we do have more techniques for workshops, and they are based on the need of a specific business or a specific set of customers. And tools that we use for this online collaboration, they are the following. So we may use either Figma. It's the design tool which allows to collaborate by different people, and the Figma is primarily focused on providing the visual design and wireframes, but they also may be it also may be used as the workshop tool, because you will be able to draw different rectangles there, draw sticky notes, write some questions, comments, and so on and so forth. Also, we can use Google Docs as a tool for online workshop. As I mentioned recently during the jobs to be done, you can write down all the jobs stories inside Google Sheets. Also, you can use specific tools for the online workshops like Miro or Mural. Right now we are using Miro, but Mural has almost the same functionality, and it's probably the holy war. What is the better, the best tool? You should try and select and choose your favorite tool. Also, it's very important to have the tools for communication. You can use either Zoom like we use today during our webinar, or you can use Skype or Microsoft Teams, or even cell phone. And definitely your cell phone will be helpful during, for example, when you would like to make a picture of some hand drawing and paste it into your Miro or mural board. And here are some tips that I would like to mention for online workshops. First of all, as as Anastasia mentioned recently, you should be prepared for connection issues. So you should prepare some games while your partner is fighting with the internet, or you should be prepared with your personal mobile hotspot in case the problem is yours and you quickly need to reconnect. The second, you need to send agenda beforehand, especially when the team hasn't been faced with workshops yet. It will help people to understand and to be prepared for the workshop session. They will understand what should be prepared for this workshop session. They probably will Google some techniques of the workshops, or they will make some research for this workshop. Also, you should understand that focus is the exhaustible resource, and you should make a break after each 45 minutes. We actually have small webinar session today, so we won't need the break after 45 minutes, but it's recommended to have a break to make some physical activities, or go to a kitchen and bring some coffee. Also, write down every single idea. Better if you delegate it to someone else who will write down all the ideas, and all these ideas should be placed in a specific place, and every single team member should understand where all the notes are collected, either on Miro board, mural board, or on Google Docs. Make summary at the end of the workshop and send it to everyone, just to inform them what was done during the workshop and what deliverables do you have at the workshop. What is our workshop team? The workshop team usually consists of different people. We usually invite for the workshop session business analyst. We invite for workshop session solution architects from our side, from DataArt side, and definitely this is the UX expert or UX team. And this is pretty convenient collaboration. Okay. Yes, Ivan, we time box the question from Ivan was, do we time box the agenda, for example, dedicated 15 minutes? Without time boxing, workshops won't work, because sometimes people are trying to discuss lots of different ideas, and they are trying to dive deeper and deeper and deeper, and we need to stop that. Well, I'll stop here at this point, then we'll proceed with this Q&A session later. And then, and now I will proceed with the prototypes and the wireframes as was asked previously. So the primary idea of the prototype in user experience design is to validate the idea. And the major part of this is to validate idea as cheap as possible. That's why prototypes help us to save time on coding and save money on coding as well, because we as designers able to provide click dummy prototypes through InVision, specific tool for designers, and validate this idea with business stakeholders and validate these ideas with the end users and customers of service. And we understand that faster we are getting feedback from end users, faster time to market. That's why as we are trying to test as early as possible. And we even test for starting from the paper prototypes, and to test, to have this quick validation session, we just need 3 parts. We need a piece of paper, we need some pencil or pen, and we need a person who will draw this wireframe. It may be either designer or it may be stakeholder. In case we're talking about the workshop, everyone is able to draw the wireframes, and all these wireframes will be done and updated on the subsequent stages. And once we've combined all these three pieces into one process, we are getting the hand-drawn prototypes and wireframes, which we already can test and validate with end users or test and validate with business stakeholders. In case we are working with the online tools, we can draw the wireframes, for example, like we did here in Mira. And here is like, it will look like this. So this is the low fidelity wireframe of Google search page. And we see that once user clicks this Google search, he will go to search result page flow. In case he would like to click this I'm feeling lucky button, he will go to random result page flow. And in collaboration, we can change this design, we can move different elements, and we can, for example, change the color of primary call to action. And this, how can we use this online collaboration tool for creating the low fidelity wireframe? In case you would like to have the higher fidelity wireframes, you can use specific software, for example, Balsamiq mockups, or you can use another more professional software like Sketch or Figma, as I mentioned them recently. If you need even higher fidelity, you can go to mid/high fidelity wireframes, where you've added additional information to the different pages, to the different screens, when you potentially added some additional structure, some icons which provide inconvenience to the end users. And if you need even more fidelity, you can do the prototype with colors. And this is the final stage of visual design, where we are combining everything on our designs. We are putting together colors, fonts, iconography, and so on and so forth. And based on these different types of wireframes, we can do clickable prototypes, and we can validate all our ideas. For example, with these colorful images, we can even validate the visual preferences of our users or the business stakeholders. And a couple of tools that we use for collaboration on the wireframes and the visual designs. As I mentioned recently, it's Figma. It's pretty convenient to have the online session regarding design, and everyone will see what other people are doing right now. Or you can do it's always the offline instrument called Sketch, but you using additional plugins and software like Abstract and InVision, you are able to communicate on visuals online. For example, on InVision, you will be able to quickly interact and comment on different screens, and you also will be able to have the Kanban board there, and you will be able to move different screens from stage to, for example, ready for approval and approved. Well, once you have approved it by the business stakeholders, and then move it to the user testing board. Also, Balsamiq mockups, they are it's pretty easy tool to create very, very low fidelity wireframes, but you can add more details to that wireframes, and they will become mid fidelity wireframes. And Mira Mural, they also may be used for the prototype sessions, as I shown you recently. And some tips for the online prototypes. You should understand that the first version is not the best one, because you will ask your users about the first version. They will answer your questions, and they will show you that there are a lot of problems of this first version. That's why you need to understand why this version is not the best, then throw it away, redo, test again, and probably you will need to do it again and again and again once you will satisfy users' needs. also, you should use the same tools across the team just to simplify the process, because in case different people use different tools, it may frustrate the team, because somebody may be sick on a specific day, and other team members may not support another instrument. That's why we recommend to use the same tool set across the team. And ask users, ask more, and ask them about their expectations, about their needs. How do they interact with the prototype? Because usually business are not not using the software which is done. Yeah, usually users use this software. And briefly, that's it on the online prototypes. And we have prepared some useful links for you that you may use to dive deeper into the workshops methodologies, and to understand how to do it in efficient way. Also, you will be able to see some energizers for the beginning of the workshop session, and you will find something interesting for you to make your ideation process interesting for the team. And we are going to dive deeper into details. We understand that it's impossible to put everything into 1 hour session of webinar, and we are going to uncover more information for you. Just tell us, what do you want to hear more from our team using this QR code, and we will provide you the answer on the questions and techniques that you are that you want to get from us.